No, for real. Be legit. Is the only
Hey, welcome in. Jason Priester, ClemsonTigers.com. It's Monday night, like we do every Monday night at 7 o'clock, Monday Live. Can take it anywhere you want to take it. Clemson takes 2 out of 3 from Pitt. Basketball's added a couple pieces from the portal. Clemson's lost a couple pieces, or football's lost a couple pieces to the portal. We can pick up where we left off talking about spring prize or the spring game, if you like. I think we spent about a whole hour talking baseball last week. That doesn't generally happen here on Monday nights, but probably 5 times in the history of this show, but we made it work last week. Anywhere you want to go, we can go with it. I'll start with baseball since Clemson took 2 out of 3 from Pitt. Eric Beckett's even admitted after the doubleheader Saturday, and I think probably most people that watch all the games or most of the games would also probably felt it, that they're kind of going through an adjustment period right now with all the injuries. It especially when a guy like Andrew Chufo gets hurt, and it just kind of throws a wrench into the chemistry you've built up in that infield. You got to move some parts around. Then Will Taylor goes down. Now you got to shuffle some pieces into batting order. So, it goes deeper than just missing 2 guys from the lineup. It has ripple effect in it. I absolutely think Chufo's injuries had a big time impact on the, chemistry that the infield had started to develop over the, past few weeks. He'd been really good there too. Outside of, he made some errors the first, weekend or a couple of weeks or so, but he hasn't since. He's been really good, man. He was really starting to come into his own. And yeah, I know Will Taylor's batting under 250, but God, he had a 20-something on base streak going. He had his on base percentage was still up there. He was still getting on base and making things happen, and he's pretty daggone good defensively out there. And Clemson had an error out in left field over the weekend that cost them big time with 2 outs. Pacetta has one hit him in the glove, and it pops out, and I forgot now how many. It ended up costing them a bunch of runs. Not that they were going to win that game anyways, but Pitt's starting pitcher kind of shut them down that day, or in game 1. It's also caused Obertop to have to play more first base than he has been, and Jacob Gerald was not very good behind the plate Saturday in that first game. He made a couple of big mistakes, and I thought Clemson caught a break on that second play at the plate because I thought the guy was safe. So looked to me like he was a little out of position. He had a pass ball that was almost right over the plate, didn't hit the dirt or anything. I don't know if it was a miscommunication with the pitcher or what, but when the ball's over the plate, the catcher's got to catch it. So it just it's had a ripple effect. And then Baker said it's something they're going to have to just play through. Interesting game coming up tomorrow night at Georgia in Athens. Typically Clemson plays a home and home with Georgia in the midweek. I don't think Georgia wanted to do that anymore. They wanted to play just one per year. Like next year they'll play in Clemson. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that game doesn't disappear altogether at some point in the very near future. And that would be a shame. But this one's going to be a top 20 matchup. I forget where Georgia's ranked off the top of my head, but they're ranked. Clemson's ranked in the top 5, or they're ranked number 5 at D1 this week, moved up a spot. Big test for Billy Barlow, who's kind of been a little up and down in that midweek role. He got hit up a little bit last week against Charlotte. He's had some good, decent performances, and he's had some not so decent performances. And fortunately, though, it does look like Clemson's starting to figure some things out in that bullpen. Reed Garris looks like he's back full on now. It took him a little while to get there, but it looks like he's back. If you could get the Nick Clayton you got over the weekend, that would be an added bonus. But maybe you start to see more of a guy like Jacob McGovern, who's been really good in all of his appearances, albeit there have been limited appearances. I don't think he's given up a run yet. Did walk a guy in a big spot the other day, but he came in. I can't remember if he came in with the bases loaded or two guys on base, but I think he came in with the bases loaded and walked the guy. But outside of that, he's been really good. Gordon's been solid in the closer's role since he's moved out there. You're starting to find exactly where guys fit, and for the most part, the bullpens. I'm not saying it's been perfect, but it's been more good than not. So if you can get Tristan Smith back to pre-injury form, looked like he had a little bit of rust on Friday, which is to be expected for a guy that's been out for about a month now. He definitely didn't look like the same Smith he was the last time we saw him. Hopefully he knocked the rust off Friday, and what you see this Friday is closer to what he was pre-injury. But that is yet to be determined. Ethan Darden got just smashed in game one Saturday, and I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes sitting in the press box if he just didn't have good stuff or what. I know Backett said after the second game that Darden had made some mistakes, and I might be wrong. Somebody can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this, but I think he gave up 8 hits, and if I'm not mistaken, 7 of them were ground balls. But they were all hard hit, but they were hit hard in the hole or right where somebody wasn't at. I do remember one line drive that was smoked, but Darden's always going to be a guy that pitches to contact, and if they find holes, it might be a long day for him. But disappointing start for him, sure, coming off of what he did the previous start, man, when he pitched the whole game and had a tough luck loss. But you get Smith back to close to where he was pre-injury, and Canuck just keeps rolling like right along. I think 27 2/3 innings. His last 27 2/3, he's given up 1 earned run, 2 runs total, and only 1 of them was earned. He just keeps putting up zeros. Didn't go quite as deep in game 2 Saturday as he has been in recent weeks, but they didn't need him to. I don't think Canuck had his best stuff in that one. His control wasn't bad, or his command wasn't bad, but it wasn't at the level it's been, start before that. Baseball, that's going to happen sometimes, but he was still really good, man. If you can get that 1-2 punch with Tristan Smith and Aiden Canuck rolling, you got something to work with, especially now that it looks like you're starting to get the bullpen figured out. Brownell keeps doing what does in the portal. A lot of success in the past. He continues to do it. Pull off a flat-out trade with Boston College. Josh Beadle goes to Boston College, and Clemson pulls in their guard who torched the Tigers twice this year, particularly in that ACC tournament game. They needed somebody to replace Joe Girard, and Zachary's a little bit different type of guard than Girard. He's probably not quite the 3-point shooter that Girard is. They shot the same percentage last season, if I'm not mistaken, but Girard shot a ton more. Zachary doesn't shoot the ball as much, or he hasn't in his time at Boston College as much, from beyond the arc. But he's more in the mold of a Chase Hunter who can drive and create things off the dribble and slash, and his mid-range game is good. So I think he averaged over 4 assists per game last season. That would have led the Clemson team if he was on Clemson's team last year. So Why he's a little bit different type of guard than what Gerard was. I think if he's more well rounded, I think he'll give you more on the defensive end too. And then you get a big man, the big man from Russia who played at Cincinnati, um, to come in and play in the post with Ian Shefflin, 7-footer. So that'll be a formidable duo down low for Clemson. You got to keep him healthy. He struggled with some injury stuff while he was at Cincinnati at times. But if you can keep him healthy, that's a pretty good duo there. Add that with the, top 25 class that's coming in, and I'm pretty sure Brownell's not done in the portal quite yet. And all of a sudden, you got something to work with next year. 100%. First week of the football portal being open, all quiet on the Clemson front Sunday. Adam Kasaya jumps in and he jumps out same day. Goes back to Minnesota where he was originally committed last summer before decommitting and committing to Clemson. And then today, Zachariah Owens, offensive lineman who only spent one season with the Tigers. He's in the portal. No player entering the portal ever surprises me anymore. But neither one of these caught me off guard at all. I think Kasaya was always a project guy. He's a 6'8" defensive end or whatever, and he weighs 230, 235 pounds. He needs a lot of work in the weight room before he's ready to play at a school like Clemson. And then once he gets here and goes through a spring practice, and Clemson's moved Peter Woods outside, they've moved Caden Story outside. You see what A.J. Hoffler's already become. You got T.J. Parker, and guys like Isaiah Campbell and Harry Watford committed in the next class, and the writing starts appearing on the wall. So that can't say that might end up being a good move for both parties there. He'll probably have an opportunity to see the field earlier at Minnesota than he would have at Clemson. Because Clemson, coming into the spring, you think maybe Clemson kind of thin at defensive end. All of a sudden now, maybe that's not quite, they're not as thin as we thought they were. They got some pieces there. And if everybody stays healthy, I think they're in a good spot. And I can't say I'm all that shocked by Owens either. I know the ACL injury during his high school season or senior season in high school, probably did not help when it comes to, the weight room and conditioning and stuff. But he's been at Clemson a year now, and I think he still weighs 375, 380. He's nowhere near playing, meaningful snaps. So be interesting to see where he ends up. So where y'all want to take it, we can take it. Hearing Tennessee is the current favorite for Sanders due to NIL. Look, anybody that was on here, I can't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't know who leads for David Sanders, but I mean, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. I tried to tell everybody that I had heard that there was going to be some other factors in play with Sanders' recruitment. And the only question was how big of a factor they were going to play. And I still don't think anybody knows yet. A lot of visits still to be taken. But I think I said it back, when we were talking about last time, I don't get the warm and fuzzies when I think about Sanders and Clemson. Never bought into the narrative really that they were in the lead. It's good to talk about and it's good to write about, but I've never really bought into it just based off a conversation I've had with somebody I know that's tied in over there. But NIL is probably going to factor into his decision, and he's going to get offered more at other schools. You can bank on that. Question is how much does he factor that in? Is that going to be the driving force in this thing? Or, it very well may be. He might not be worried about schools he grew up rooting for or culture. All those might take a back seat, especially with some of the numbers that are being thrown around today for, players of his stature that are ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the country, particularly an offensive lineman with his kind of upside. So I'm not saying anybody's in the lead. I've not heard about anybody being in the lead. But again, I've never got the warm and fuzzies about Sanders to Clemson, and I've never really fully bought into the narrative that Clemson led. Portal panic just got turned up to 11. Not who left to enter, but panic Dabby will not feel back to 85. Time for another Daniel guy. No, I do not expect Clemson to go to the portal to replace either guy that's entered. Neither one of those guys are going to expected to, help you this year. It doesn't really change anything for this year. There's been a lot of talk about Clemson wanting to take a extra offensive lineman in this class. Owens going into portal opens up a scholarship to do that. I fully expect both spots to be filled in the 2025 class. And yeah, you're right. There's going to be a big faction of this fan base that don't like it, but that's just the way it is. Exit on both lines from the positions of the two newest coaches. Yeah, hey, don't underestimate that either. They are, this week they're probably wrapping up exit interviews. And there's some brutal truth getting talked about in those exit meetings. There's no sugarcoating things, and Matt Luke, he's a demanding guy. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they told anybody to leave or said you got to transfer or cut anybody or anything like that. But you can bet almost anything that there was some hard truths told in some of those meetings with some of the guys on the roster about how they fit in, how long it might take them to get there, and those kind of things. So, yeah, it doesn't, a guy like Kasaya, and I hate to even say this, he was such a project because I remember watching him at camp last summer because he was easy to see because he's so tall. I mean, he stands out among those defensive ends out there, but he's so tall. He's so kind of wiry. Takes like that are part of the reason why Nelansky Hall is no longer at Clemson. Now, I do think Owens has got a lot of upside if he can get his body right and he can find if he can get in the weight room and do what he needs to do. And that's, I have no idea whether he's capable of that or not. I know, I think I only ever had one conversation with him way back early in the recruiting cycle, and he's a big personality, nice kid, but I just don't think he's anywhere in close to playing shape right now. Also hearing Jacobs decommit. I don't have anything new to add to this other than what I said I guess it was last week. But Jacobs is killing it on these camp circuits right now. He is absolutely killing it. I'm aware of what's been said. But I'm also aware of how recruiting works and how things do get said sometimes that don't always come to fruition. So Clemson's official visit weekend is first up on the docket. Anything that he would want to do would come after that, whether it be Alabama or LSU. So I would expect this to get nipped in the bud pretty quick. But yeah, teams are going to keep coming after him. And there's a tie to LSU, so it's I guess it's one worth keeping an eye on. But I don't know that anything's imminent here. It kind of is what it is in recruiting these days. This is no different from a lot of guys in the past who've gone on that are committed and go out and blow up on the camp circus. Even though Jacobs was already a big name guy, but he has just exploded. I mean, I think he killed it at another camp again this weekend. When you're doing that into some of these national camps with that many eyeballs on you and getting that kind of exposure, yeah, it's gonna lead to some attention, man. People are gonna try to come and poach you. Do you think that transfer might have actually dropped the ball that Chase Hunter is coming back? I'll be surprised if Hunter doesn't come back. I don't think that's any secret now that it kind of sounds like it's going to play out that way. He's going to go through the process, but he's going to keep his eligibility, kind of similar to what PJ Hall did last year. The closer we got to the end of the season, once we got to the end of the season and got into the postseason, it just started heading in that direction where it was sounding like he was more than open to a return. So I'll be a little surprised if he's not back next year. Matter of fact, I'll be more than a little surprised. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that he really dropped the ball because I think Brownell's even talked about a little bit on the radio on the Roar in the past week or so about the possibility of Chase coming back. I mean, if he goes through the process in the draft and stuff and gets all this good feedback and they tell him he's a second round pick, maybe he goes, which I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just saying if, but outside of that, I think it's better. It's probably, let me say it like this. It might be better for him to come back. He can probably make as much at Clemson through NIL deals as he could playing overseas. So, one more year at Clemson might be best for all parties involved. I was shocked that any offensive line decided to transfer, but Owens was the kid that decommitted once before, right? Yeah, he decommitted, took a visit to Florida State. I can't say for sure whether this is factual or not, but I've been led to believe that, Florida State was paid him something to come on that unofficial visit, or I can't remember if it was unofficial or official visit that weekend. But he ended up, leaving early because he was not enjoying himself, and then he quickly committed right back to Clemson. I think Owens is just a long ways from seeing any playing time, man. And there's a different position coach in place now than compared to when he signed and who he was envisioned playing for. That could be playing a factor here too. Again, I don't think he's the guy that was going to help you this year. So, I mean, I'm not one that thinks it's that big of a loss. Not as far as 2024 goes. I do. Again, I think I said a minute ago, I think he's got a high ceiling if he could, get his body right. Watching him in the spring game, though, man, his feet look slow. He just looks a little slow, and that might be all due to how heavy he is. More film on Canuck, team seeing him more. There's already plenty of film on Canuck. I don't think I don't know that it was more team. What we saw Sunday was more teams seeing film on him or him just not having his best stuff. He walked the leadoff guy. I don't think we've ever seen that to start the game. Then he walked another guy. He's not a guy that walks a lot of people. I mean, his whip's around 1.0 I can't remember what it was. I looked it up Saturday. It was like 1.01 or something like that. He just doesn't give up. He just doesn't walk a lot of guys. And when he walks more than one guy in a start, it's particularly a leadoff guy, tells me he's not on that day. I will eat crow. Brownell may be the best coach Clemson will ever have. Brownell knows how to work the portal, and he's got some financial backing with some donors there that have his back, and that always that helps tremendously when you've got the money to go out and dabble and play in the portal and bring in the pieces that you need. And he's been doing this for a while. This isn't some new revelation. That the Sweet 16 team, Marquise Reed, golly, I'm drawing a blank. Shelton Mitchell, the big man they got from Texas A&M. His Twitter handle is e.cash, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but three guys, three transfers he brought in back before the portal ever come to fruition. I mean, this is something Brownell's been doing, man, and he's been working magic in the portal, and more often than not, the moves he makes pay off. And so far, these two moves he's made in the portal in the past week, I like them. I think they're great fits, and I think they're gonna pay dividends, next season. Any rubber match from here on out, I will feel pretty confident about with Canuck on the mound. Yeah, I've been feeling that way for a few weeks now. Somebody told me Friday night they needed to move Canuck to Fridays, which is kind of, if you knew what you were going to have in him before the season, obviously it's hard to make that move in season. But I kind of like, assuming you get this, Tristan Smith back to where he was, I love the idea of Canuck on Sundays. You never know when you're, like you say, playing a rubber game, or I know it hasn't happened to Clemson very often of late, since especially over the past year or so, or when you're going into a Sunday trying to stave off a sweep. That's the guy I want on the hill. Absolutely 100%. And again, I've seen so many people talk about he needs to be moved to Friday nights. Well, to do that, he'd have to pitch on 4 days rest. and I don't think you want to go that route with your freshman, especially a guy. If you've listened to him talk in some of his interviews, he's very detail oriented. He's very routine oriented. I don't know that that's a routine you want to mess with. I like him right where he's at for this season. Do you think Clemson will go in the portal for an O-line tech? No. Again, I don't think Owens was a guy that was going to help you this year. You've already got your top 5, 6, 7 guys. You know who they are already. You're not going. Dabo's not going to the portal to bring in somebody to take a starting job from one of those guys. He's just not going to do it. I mean, it's not going to happen. I fully expect them to take that scholarship and use it in 2025 class and bring in a big class of offensive linemen. Will Dabo be on the hot seat if he loses 4 of the first 5 games? No, I don't think so. I'm talking about a guy that's won 2 national titles, and golly, I can't even remember how many ACC championships now. But no, I don't think he's on the hot seat if he loses 4 games again next year. I just don't think he's built up that much cachet, so to speak. I don't even remember who the first 4 games are. I know Georgia's one. I fully expect Clemson to lose that game. One of them's the App State. I mean, you can't ever overlook those guys, but man, I don't know that I would think App State's coming here and beating Clemson. Pull up their schedule right quick. NC State, Georgia, App State, NC State. That's going to be a tough one, man, because I think NC State's done as well as anybody in the portal, in the or at least in the ACC, and as well as most anybody has across the country. I think they have added a bunch of good pieces. If as long as Dave Doran don't screw it up, I think they're going to be really good next year. But I don't see Clemson losing to Stanford. No way, no how. I mean, I just don't see Clemson losing 4 out of 5 to open the season. I just don't see it. But, let's say it happens. No, I don't think he'll be on the hot seat. Does the basketball transfers in and out help or hurt the team next season? I don't know how they would hurt. I mean, if you don't bring them in, then you're relying on a bunch of inexperienced guys and freshmen outside of Shefflin and Chase Hunter. And if you don't bring them in, maybe Chase Hunter don't want to come back after all. If he knows there's less to play for. No, I mean, this Brownell's been doing this year after year after year for years now. This is nothing new. The only thing to me is you got to find the right personality fits that's going to fit with the personalities already on your team. And I think, we saw a little bit of that with this year's Clemson team. I think it took a little bit for Gerard to kind of settle in from that aspect. But that team went on to make the Elite Eight, so it didn't really hurt them that bad. It just, I don't know how it hurts. So you bring in good players to offset the loss of the good players you are losing. What are some other offensive linemen we are looking at if we miss on Sanders? Well, Mason Short's off the board. Mal Waldrop, Max Buchanan. Those would be 2 of the top guys. Josh Petty is probably my favorite of all the offensive linemen. He's supposed to be here for the official visit weekend. Those would be the 3, probably right off the top of my head. But you miss on Short, you miss on Sanders. Chauncey Gooden's probably a name to know. I'm trying to think anybody else. My memory's not what it used to be, but Waldrop, Buchanan, Petty, those would definitely be the 3 names at the top of the list. I really like Clemson's chances with Waldrop, and let's not forget they've already got 2 committed. So. FSU spring game. Did I watch it? No. I saw one highlight. A pass from DJ getting broken up in the end zone. No, I can't say I watched any of it. Yeah, Elijah Thomas. Thank you. That was the big man transferred in on the Sweet 16 team a few years back. Thank you. The only complaint I have with the baseball team is falling behind early in games. I love the fact we've proven to be good at comebacks, but eventually it's gonna bite us. Yeah, you got to play cleaner. You got to at least play cleaner in the early innings. Make no mistake. But always playing from behind is definitely not ideal. Obviously, this team's shown they're capable of it, and they've shown it over and over and over and over again. And I'll be honest, Saturday in game 2, when they went up early in the first 2 innings, it felt weird. It just didn't feel right. I think I even tweeted that out. It didn't feel right to be sitting up there in a game, first inning, second inning, and Clemson's up. And not just up 1-0. They're up whatever it was. I forget. They put several runs on the board by then. But no, yeah, ideally you'd like to quit falling behind early. No question. Still haven't had many, if any, transfers that have really affected productivity, except maybe Makuba, who we expected to hit the NFL. Yeah, you got a pretty good point here. Makuba would definitely be the top of the list, but like you, I kind of halfway lean towards thinking he was going the NFL route after last season anyways. Can't say I was ever really expecting him back. No, I'm kind of curious to see what Bo Collins does up there at Notre Dame, but with guys like Wesco and Moore coming in and some of the other receivers already on the roster, you kind of know who Bo Collins was in this offense already, and I think he'd hit his ceiling. I think, like I said about Kasai and Owens, both parties needed a fresh start, and but yeah, it's an excellent point. It's not really impacted Clemson in that way. Yes, the umpire Friday was terrible. He was terrible. But to his credit, he was terrible both ways. It wasn't one-sided, at least. Does Hall come back? No. I do not expect PJ to be back. I know he's not put out an official announcement or anything, but that is something that would very much surprise me. I know I say very few things shock me anymore, but I think that one might qualify as something that shocked me if he came back. Just based on everything I heard throughout the season, based on everything I've heard since the season. I think now is probably the time for him to make that move. And again, like I said earlier, I don't think Brownell's done in the portal either. So I think he's going to add at least one more guy. I have no idea who it's going to be. I see somebody asking about other known Brownell targets. No, not really. Brownell likes to keep that stuff under the radar. He doesn't like that stuff getting out. It just creates more opportunity. It just creates opportunities for the price to go up when it starts getting publicized. Like the idea of Connaught pitching on Sunday since he's still a freshman. Tristan is elite too. Just needs to shake the rust off. He wasn't terrible this weekend. Errors made him. No, I don't think he was terrible Friday. No, make no mistake. He wasn't terrible. He just wasn't pre-injury Tristan that we had seen the few weeks before he got hurt. But yeah, so do I. Like I said earlier, I love Connaught pitching on Sunday. Part of my reasoning in the past has been because he was a freshman, but that wouldn't bother me anymore if for whatever reason they sat him a weekend and moved him to another weekend or another day, or moved him to Friday, or however they did it. So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just saying him being a freshman wouldn't scare me because he ain't your typical freshman. I gotta do talk to that guy, man. He's so dialed in, man. He's so detail oriented, man. It's almost like he's already a professional. And And I know a lot of players at this level are detail oriented and have good work habits and everything, but this guy just takes it to a whole other level. And he's doing it as a freshman. And he was doing it before he got to Clemson. He has shown no signs of being a freshman at all this season. Nothing seems to rattle that kid. But yeah, I love the idea of him on Sunday with Smith on Friday and Darden on Saturday. The only downside to Darden going on Saturday is it takes one of your left-handed arms out of the bullpen. And if Rocco Reed could ever get his command under control, that would alleviate that worry. But his last couple of times out, he's starting to look more like the Rocco of last season when you never knew if he was going to throw one, 5 feet out wide or 5 feet outside or right over the plate. But if you could get the Rocco Reed we were seeing earlier in the season, that would help with some of that because they don't have a lot of lefties out there. Yeah, this is another pretty good point. The only thing that may take into effect with Dabo's strategy is always have younger teams to work with and experience everything. Yes, if you keep losing a bunch of guys, even if they're depth guys that aren't starting yet to the portal every year, and you keep replacing them with high school guys, and it's the same thing year after year after year after year, and some of these guys you're recruiting after high school don't start to stay longer. Yeah, it could be play out to where you're going to be young in spots every single year. That is definitely a possibility without question. The rest of the 2024 commits, it depends. I know at least one that's enrolling for the summer semester, so he'll be here early May. The rest of them will be here in August for the fall semester. I don't know how many of them are enrolled for summer. I just know one of them is. And then the ones that anybody that's not going to summer school would obviously be here for the fall semester, arrive late July, early August, sometime around there. Oxendine from Dillon. Have I ever watched him play live? No, I have not. I have watched his film, and he looks solid. He's coming to camp this summer. He told me he's coming to work out at camp this summer. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing him work out in person. But as far as who in that class is the QB Clemson wants, I don't think they know yet, to be quite honest. That might not be decided here for a few more weeks. I don't know. I definitely don't think Oxendine would be at the top of the list. And if I'm not mistaken, he's from Dillon. It's kind of been a South Carolina pipeline over the years. Any of those guys that are Power 5 players tend to end up in South Carolina. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Oxendine's a South Carolina guy too, which hasn't always mattered when it comes to recruiting, but more often than not, when these in-state guys, if they got a choice between Clemson and South Carolina, they're going to end up at the one they grew up rooting for. But again, I'm not sure who Clemson's going to zero in on as the 2026 guy yet. We didn't know about Blake Ebert until last summer. Garrett Riley, or, late spring, Garrett Riley went and watched him throw. Then had him come throw at camp. And he wasn't even a guy that was really on my radar for camp when they held camp last year. And he comes out of camp with one of the two quarterback offers along with George McIntyre, who, everybody figured was going to get one of the offers. And, so that might not be decided yet. If it is, I don't know who it is. you heard anything about Elijah Griffin's chances? You got to get him here for the official visit weekend. He's supposed to be here that weekend. You got to get him here that weekend and turn on the magic. That's your shot. I think there's already been a lot of predictions to him for Georgia. You know, he's a Georgia kid. He lives in Georgia. He was always gonna be a hard pull out of Georgia. I don't think it's gonna be impossible for Clemson to land him, but I definitely wouldn't call him the favorite by any stretch. You know, they got to work some magic that weekend. And it's not just with Griffin, it's going to be with a lot of guys. They're going to have to work some magic. You know, just look at the offensive line, for example. A few weeks ago, everybody's feeling just, you know, great about the 2025 offensive line class, how it's coming together. You got Ware, you got Jacobs, you got Beckley. All of a sudden, Beckley decommits, even though he's not the big-time guy that the other two are, and some of the other targets are. But then you got guys like David Sanders and Mason Short showing legit interest in Matt Luke and Clemson. Short, you know, he goes elsewhere. Sanders, nobody knows. Like my man said earlier, he said he heard Tennessee's the favorite. You know, I've always, like I said, and I said, I'll say it again. Like I said, I can't remember if it was last week or week before last, but never had a good feeling about Sanders and Clemson. Just something in my gut. But, you know, I think, you know, Max Buchanan is a guy that's going to be hard to pull out of Florida. I do think Waldrop's a guy Clemson can land. Gavin Blanchard's probably another name to know. He's from down in Florida. He was here for the elite retreat. But back to my point, I'm starting to ramble. You know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, you're feeling really good about the way Clemson's offensive line class is going to shake out. Now it's looking a little different. You know, it's looking like they might have to start going down the board a little bit. But you don't ever know, man, till you get them here. And not saying, you know, obviously Greg Griffin's visited before. He was here. I want to say he was here for the big weekend in January. Pretty sure he was, but again, he's scheduled to be here that the big official visit weekend, May 31st, June 1st, June 2nd, and that's where you got to do your work. That's where you got to do your work. Do you think Davis Sanders going to Tennessee spring game and not Clemson spring game should make you concerned? Not on the surface, no. He's been to Clemson. He came in January and then he came twice during the spring. I never expected him back for the spring game. He's very meticulous, man. He's gonna do his due diligence. He's gonna take all his visits. One thing that I have always heard about Sanders is that he's probably going to end up staying close to home. You know, that would qualify Georgia. That would qualify Clemson. I don't know, you know, Tennessee's starting to get a little far away from home. Not real far, but it's getting a little further away from home. That's why I've always never liked Ohio State's chances to get in it, you know, really get in it. But again, there's going to be multiple factors that play into this thing, and it's just going to come down to which one of those factors he considers the most important. Lucas Malstead. Yeah, he's been another good piece out there in that pen. Again, you know, if you get some of those pieces figured out in the bullpen, and it looks like they've started doing that. And it's going to help the team tremendously down the stretch. Yeah, Christian Garrett, defensive lineman. He's another guy that's supposed to be here at the big official visit weekend. I haven't done a lot of asking around about him, so I can't give you a whole lot of insight on him. Clemson does need a couple of defensive tackles in this class because you got, or at least one more, anyways. You got, Amari Adams, who's going to project to play inside, but Campbell, who I originally was led to believe was going to play inside, he's going to play defensive end. Ari Watford's going to play defensive end, so you need at least one more tackle, man. If you land a guy like Garrett or heck, an Elijah Griffin, and put with the guys that you've already got. Whew. And right now, that's defensive line is one area where Clemson's just kept kind of plugging right along, man, and keep bringing in elite level talent, especially since Nick Eason's come on board, and I would expect it to get amped up a little bit now that Chris Rump's back. Jordan Young, is he still a Clemson lean? See, it's hard to know with some of these guys, especially when guys are going to probably take it through the summer officials, and people starts talking about they're leaning this way in March or February or January. There's just so much time left in the recruitment. You never know what kind of twists and turns are left. It's hard to say with some of these guys. I've had a couple conversations with Jordan Young. I know he's really high on Clemson. I know they're really high on him. I'll just say that I still like their chances with him. I don't know if he's still leaning towards Clemson or what. He did get back to campus this spring, so it's not like he hadn't been there in a while or anything. So just plugging right along there, man. Secondary stacks up in the ACC this year. I would put it up there with about anybody else's, man. I like what Clemson's got on the back end. I'm telling you, I do. Even with the loss of Makuba and the loss of Nate Wiggins and Sheridan Jones, I think I've said it many times. I love what Clemson's got at cornerback in Terrell and Shelton Lewis. And if you can get Jaden Lucas back healthy, that gives you 3 really good corners. Not to mention those 2 freshmen. Tavoy Fegan showed a lot of promise in the spring. Corey and Gibson's going to be a really good corner for you. And then, there's some other guys I'm forgetting too, but I think Brandon Strozer's a guy that can help you. I think Clemson's got some talent to work with at corner. And same thing at safety. You get RJ back. You get Khalil Barnes back. And then you got, telling you my memory's getting so bad, man. Names are forgetting me. The kid that tore his ACL last year and missed, most of the season. His name's right on the tip of my tongue. I call him a heat-seeking missile because that's kind of how he plays safety. But I need to start pulling the roster up before I do these things. But we saw Clemson's pass defense take a big jump last year from where it was the year before, and I don't think there's going to be much of a drop-off, if any, this year. I like the pieces they got to work with on the back end. It's bothering me now. I'm going to have to look it up, which guy I'm thinking about and can't remember his name. I'm telling you, man, the older I get, the worse it gets. Sherrod Koval. That's who I'm thinking of. Sherrod Koval. Is this D line going to be as deep as 2018? I don't know. I don't. You got plenty of depth up front. I don't think depth's anything to worry about up front on defense, especially on the interior. You don't have quite as much out on the edge. You need guys like Parker and Woods to stay healthy. Um, you got to love what you saw out of A.J. Hoffler in the spring game. By all accounts, he had a really good spring. I know back during those bowl practices when Chris Rump first got there, he was, I spent some time watching the ends in one of the practices, man, and he was getting on Hoffler hard, because Rump's a guy that coaches his players hard. But it looks like he's taken well to that kind of coaching, and Hoffler's always a guy that I was high on anyways. And then I think Darian Mayo's a guy that'll have opportunity to help you if he can come in here and soak up everything he needs to learn and not hit the freshman wall. He has a chance to maybe work himself into the rotation. He's going to be physically ready to play. The mental side is really the only thing he's going to have to worry about. Can he soak it all in that short amount of time? Will Taylor injury is really going to disrupt this baseball team. See, I think it was disrupted already with Chufo. To me, that one hurts. I mean, you lose something with both of them. For me, Chufo, it kind of screwed up the chemistry in the infield and made them move some pieces around, and it's just throwing everything in flux. But yeah, Taylor's a big loss. It's a big time loss. You lose your guy at the two hole. A great defender out there in left field with the glove. So he got hurt trying to make a superstar catch out there on a foul ball. I remember when he dove and rolled over. I remember telling somebody sitting beside me in the press box, man, that thing did not look good. I was surprised when he got right back up, stayed in. But hopefully you get him back, for the postseason. I know his batting average isn't all that high this year, but like I said earlier, he still gets on base, man. His on base percentage is high. He had a 20-something game on base streak going. So I think they're two big losses, man. I don't know if one of them, if I had to say one's bigger than the other, I'd say Chufo just because of how it's impacted the way they played on the infield. How likely is it that Clemson and FSU would trigger the composition clause by leaving on or before June 30th? I'll be surprised if either one of them applies. I would look more towards 2026, getting out in time for 2026. But I'm not. This is not my area of expertise. I know Florida State. The judge in Florida State's case today, he dismissed and told them they needed to refile and reword the complaint, so to speak. So they'll have to refile, and it'll be done within about a week, another court date. Fortunately for Clemson, they took a little bit different of approach. But I would be surprised if either one of them, file paperwork to leave this summer. I would look for them to file in time to be out for 2026. Have you heard if we are still in it for Cortez Mills? Would love to get that guy. I actually touched base with Cortez today. He's still set to be here for the spring. For the official visit weekend. He was supposed to visit for the spring game. But he had a 7-on-7 event that weekend and was not able to get to town due to obviously a scheduling conflict. So got his visits got pushed back. Now it's going to be the official visit weekend. So that means he's not been here since last summer. He's a guy that's he's kind of like some of those Georgia kids, man, where they're hard to pull out of Georgia. I think he's going to be hard to pull out of Florida. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't call Clemson the favorite, but I also wouldn't say they don't have a shot. We're just going to have to get to June officials and see how things play out. But the fact that he's coming, and as of right now, he still says he's coming. So that's a positive. Crichton had a big game Sunday. He hasn't had a lot of opportunity lately. They were going to start him in a game last weekend, maybe it was, or the weekend before, I can't remember. But he ended up he was a late scratch because he's been dealing with some back spasms and stuff. But Crichton is a guy that Bakich is really high on. He was a big time prospect coming out of high school. It's just taking him a little while to get there. But we kind of started. We've seen flashes of it, and we saw more of it in game 2 Saturday when he started. I think he was 3 for 4. He had a big game. A lot of talent with that kid. He's going to have some opportunities now that Will Taylor's out, assuming that the back stuff's in the rearview mirror. Nathan Hall's another one that might see some opportunities. Obviously, Becerra will against certain pitchers because I think you'll see Bakich. He even said this. I think it was Saturday night. That might have been Friday, but they might, start platooning some guys out there in left based on, righty lefty pitchers. So they're all going to have some opportunities, man. But Crichton's a big time talent, man. If he can get it going, that'd be a big boost, man. For an offense that just lost Will Taylor and Andrew Chufo. Chances with the wide receiver out of Ridgeview, Jordan Gidron, 2026 guy. I'm kind of undecided on whether he'll be one of the opening offers or not when Clemson starts handing out offers. I'm leaning towards thinking he will be, but sometimes Clemson's kind of been slow to offer the in-state guys, so we'll see. He's another guy that's been killing it at some of these camps and stuff. But yeah, Clemson's as solid as you can be with a guy in 2026 right now. He's still a long ways to go with him, but after having taught him a handful of times over the past few months, yeah, he Clemson's in it. If you have not hit that like button, don't forget to do so. Hit that subscribe button as well. That might be even more important than hitting that like button. I'm sure most of you got any new viewers in here tonight. Don't forget, for all you guys that like to place a wager every now and then, betonline.ag. Use the promo code ACCTV.
If you are looking to place your bet for March Madness, the NBA, NHL, MLB, college football, or any other sporting events, go to BetOnline AG and enter the code ACTTV for a 50% welcome bonus up to $1,000. With the earliest lines, biggest bets and fastest payouts, BetOnline AG is the place to go. Don't forget to use the code ACTTV.
As always, man, appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight. I tried to get to as many questions as I could without, hitting a lot of the same ones twice. Right back at it here again next Monday, 7 p.m. Right, here we go. I'll get one more. Could you envision a scenario for a Jeff Scott return? I have a hard time seeing Jeff Scott coming back to Clemson to be a wide receivers coach. or just a position coach after he's been a head coach. To me, it seems like the next step would be running his own offense somewhere. It doesn't sound like right now he is interested in getting back into the coaching game. But can I see a scenario where he returns at some point in the future? Sure. I just don't know that it's in the immediate future. Again, appreciate everybody that tuned in. Don't forget, check out the site. I'm going to have a little update on some wide receiver targets in the morning. AllClemsonTigers.com. Right back here next Monday, 7 p.m. We'll do it all over again.